Hey,
Hey, Anthony, how are ya?
good. How are you?
Fantastic.
Good.
Well, welcome to Talbott TV, episode 6, I believe. Uh,
Okay. Awesome.
there's one episode that's still pending. I have to upload it, but you'll be right after that.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let me make sure I can hear you because I've got my audio a little low. No, it's okay. All right. So let's get started. So welcome to Talbot TV. Thank you so much for taking out some time of your day to spend this time talking to me about open water swimming and all the fun stuff that you do. And just a little background about Anthony, a little introduction is Anthony is an incredible marathon swimmer. Has done some swimming in you name it. There's all sorts of different places. I think I was looking at your resume of marathon swims, and one thing that surprised me is a lot of them occurred after the age of 50, if almost all of them. And
Yeah, all of them are.
all of
100% of them are. Yeah.
and which is like super amazing because it gives a lot of like hope to people who have aspirations and want to do things, and here you have all these swims, the triple crown of California, the national triple crown, and then I would love to talk about your new short movie, the new movie coming out, as well as the Triple Crown of South America. So let me switch to gallery view. I want to make sure that it's recording both of us.
Okay.
So Anthony, tell us a little bit about, first of all, start with the Triple Crown of the Triple Crown of marathon swimming, because maybe some people watching this don't know those three swims, and then go into the Triple Crown of California, and then this new thing that you're working on, which is the Triple Crown of South America.
So the traditional Triple Crown is English Channel around Manhattan, circumnavigation. Why is that a tongue twister? I don't know today, but it is. You swim around Manhattan,
Yep.
and then it's Catalina to shore, or shore to Catalina, the California mainland to Catalina, back and forth. So it's those three swims.
And all three swims are around 20 to 30 miles in length, depending.
Well, actually, it's a little different than it was surprising, right? So being somebody who had not done marathon swims, if somebody did these, it was quite a learning experience. For me, the English Channel was by far the hardest. It was the most difficult. That's 20.7 miles.
Yep.
Catalina is 20.2 miles. And then around Manhattan is 28.5 miles. But really, Manhattan is the easiest out of the three by far. And I've never heard anybody say anything different, because if you time it right, you're getting pushed up the East River, goes a little slack in the Harlem, and then you're going downstream in the Hudson.
Yep.
And so, that one's almost, as far as I know, it's the fastest swim for everybody, even though distance-wise, it's the farthest. It's also, the water's warmer,
Yep.
so on and so forth, right?
Yep.
I did the three swims within a year of each other, the way it worked out. I did them within 12 months of each other.
That's
amazing. And I did Manhattan and Catalina within exactly 3 weeks apart.
Wow.
So when I did Manhattan, I did it knowing I was going to do Catalina. So it was kind of like, it was really hot. And they required for that, that you had to wear a cap. And it was, I can't remember what it was, but the water was at least in the 70s. And I don't like to wear a cap or anything above 60. And
exactly.
So, anyway, so I was just burning up. And, but anyway, so Manhattan was the easiest, but the longest.
Wow.
Not time-wise, but distance-wise.
Yeah. And so, and in kilometers for those international viewers here who aren't American? We're
Oh
talking
gosh, okay. English Channel, I think, is 30. Actually, I don't know. You know what?
30 plus kilometers to somewhere around, 50 kilometers, I think would be Manhattan. So yeah, between 30 and 50.
I'm gonna have to trust you for whatever reason, right? In all my workouts, I think in terms of kilometers or yards. But then when I do my swims, I think in miles. I don't know why, but that's just the way my brain works. So
awesome. Okay, so that's the Triple Crown,
right.
open water swimming. Tell us about the Triple Crown of California.
So that is Catalina.
Okay.
So doing the Triple Crown, you get one in each, a foot on each base.
Yep.
And then it's Lake Tahoe, the length of Lake Tahoe, which is 21.3 miles. I'm going to have to ask you to calculate that one too for kilometers. I don't know.
About 30.
And then it's any of the other the other Catalina Islands or Southern California Island swims. I did Anacapa.
Okay.
I did Anacapa in 2014.
Yep.
And so I had two of the legs done by 2014. And then in 2018, I did a length of Lake Tahoe.
Nice.
And that was the California Triple Crown. At the time, right, you brought up age earlier. At the time, I was the oldest person to ever do the California Triple Crown. But I think that lasted like 3 weeks. Somebody came and broke broke that like 3 weeks later. But I had a record for 3 weeks.
A 3-week record. That's awesome. Now, this new film that's coming out, and I'll have links for those watching this online. If you go to talbott.tv, you'll be able to follow the links to the previews for the movie on YouTube. But it's called Rio, right? And it's about one of the rivers swims in of the Triple Crown of South America, right?
Well, it's really the word Rio is kind of a play on the word. It's river, right? Because
river.
One of the three Triple Crown swims in South America, one is in Rio de Janeiro, and it's actually you swim from 2 points that this one I know in K. It's 36K from Leme to El Potal. And you swim basically all the beaches of Rio de Janeiro. You swim past all the beaches. And it's absolutely a gorgeous swim. And I think that's one reason. I mean, the cinematography on this film is just amazing.
And you completed that one?
I did. And then, but you need to watch the film, so don't ruin too much.
Okay. Yeah. So no spoilers. Okay.
But no, I'll talk about that one a little bit. But so the Rio de Janeiro swim, 36K, and actually that one took me 15 hours. It was just I was I think the 29th person I think to do that swim. So they're still learning a lot about the currents there and how it works and all that. And so about halfway, I just swims, straighten it dead on into a head-on current. Plus, I had some stomach issues starting at hour 4. I had no feeds from hour 4 on. So it took me about 15 hours. I was completely wiped out at the end. And when you swim, this, right? You don't see a lot when you swim, but I'm really glad that those guys were there and filmed it because the scenery is beautiful.
Awesome.
I got to see it, professional camera people, version of the swim, which is pretty amazing. But I was the first. I was the first non-South American, actually the first non-Brazilian even to do that swim.
Nice.
Somebody else had tried it, but I was the first one to complete it. And I am the oldest, and I'm still the oldest. I think COVID helped a little bit with that because it's been a year now. But anyway, so I still hold that old record.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, what's the water temperature like in Rio?
Oh, so it was crazy. It was really bizarre. I expected it to be warm. I was prepared for a warm swim. I trained for a warm swim.
Okay.
I went in the water the day before, and the water was in this, low 60s. I was like, "What the heck is this?"
Wow.
And then it warmed up the next day. It was fine when I got in, but then a few hours into the swim, I can't remember exactly when, but I'd never experienced anything like this. The water at the surface was, like the top 3 inches or so was hot. And by hot, I mean like, probably 80, 81, maybe even a little warmer, like
Yep.
hot. And then right below it, it was like an immediate thermocline right below it, and it was in the low 60s. And so my head, which I like my head being cold, right? Yeah. So my head was all hot, right? And I was burning up on my head, and then my body had goosebumps on it.
Oh my
So
God.
it was really an unusual thing. And that the majority of the swim was like that.
Wow. Yeah, because it's right near the equator, right?
No, it's farther south than the equator. It's farther south, but it's still warmer. I mean, it's still much warmer than most North American swims. There's no doubt about that. So, but it's just a beautiful swim. And I say you don't see much, but still, if you breathe off your right, you are seeing the mountain ranges. You're seeing those kind of things, and the scenery is just absolutely gorgeous down in Rhode. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
So the ocean swim is number one.
And then so the second swim is in the Rio de la Plata, which is the river that is between Uruguay and Argentina.
Okay.
And that swim was first done over 100 years ago. And that swim is 42K. Again, for whatever reason, I know those two.
42K. I think it's probably around 28 miles or something like that.
That's 27, 28, something like that. But anyway, so the title of the film is Rio because it really covers those two swims, and it's a double use of the word. It's the Rio de la Plata, it's the river, and then it's also Rio de Janeiro. It's it's the city. So it's kind of it covers both of those swims.
So I was reading a little bit about the Triple Crown of South America, and if I remember correctly, the third swim is a swim between Argentina and Chile. Is that right?
That's correct. So
mountain lake.
So this Triple Crown is a little different than other Triple Crowns. That third leg, not a marathon swim, but it's a really cold swim. It's through Beagle Strait, and so.
So is that in Patagonia or is that?
No, it's in Beagle, so it's not it's farther the other way than that, but it's between. But you're absolutely right. It's between the southern part of Uruguay and then the part of Chile that kind of wraps around Uruguay down at the bottom.
Okay, and that's
I can't describe it without pulling up a map.
Is it up at the have altitude associated with it?
No, that's an ocean swim. It's an ocean swim.
Oh, that's an ocean swim.
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I thought that was
no, it's Beagle Strait. It's the Beagle Strait.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Now, what about some of these other swims? I think there's the Ocean 7, which is between two islands in Japan and between two islands in New Zealand, and the Strait of what is it called, Gibraltar, between Africa and Spain. Is that on your roadmap, or is that of interest to you?
No, I mean I've done 4 of them. I've done because Catalina is one of them, English Channel is one of them, Cook Strait, New Zealand's one of them, and Gibraltar is one of them.
Gibraltar. So Gibraltar is the one from you start in Spain, you end in Africa.
That's correct. So I always like to joke with people. I say the first time I went to Africa, I actually swam there. So
did you get a chance to spend any time in Morocco after, or did you?
It's the same thing. And with the French and the English Channel, right? You have 10 minutes to get out.
Yeah.
So, but we did go back the next day on a ferry.
Yeah.
And hung out in Morocco for a while. So that was kind of cool.
That's very cool.
But anyway, so I've done those 4. I'm not really sure that I'm gonna do it's not calling my name.
Yeah.
The same way, for whatever reason, the Triple Crown of South America is calling my name, but the Ocean 7's not really calling my name. The 3 I haven't done are between Molokai and Oahu in Hawaii.
Yep.
Tsugaru, which is the channel in Japan that you just described.
Yep.
And then the North Channel between Ireland and Scotland.
That's a cool one.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm not saying no, but I am getting older, so technically I'm running out of time. The clock is ticking. But it's not. They're just not calling my name the same way. these swims are. So
wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, speaking of time, like how do you find time to train or do these swims? Is it like not a coincidence that it's this time in your life, towards the second half of that you're able to accomplish these great swims?
no, well, no, I don't know that you know this about me, but yes, I'm old, but I have young children. I have two older kids that are in their late 20s,
Yeah.
but then I also have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Yep.
So I have a very hectic and full, busy schedule, and it is absolutely really hard to find time because they're so active, right?
Right.
There's swimmers and baseball players and dancers, and and I try to be at every single one of those things I can, right?
That's incredible.
So water polo players, judo. They're very active kids. But to me it boils down to the training. And but I trained this way even before they were old enough to not require, that's the wrong word, where I'm blessed enough to go to all their events. They just didn't have that many events when they were younger. But I'm a real believer that for marathon swims, you don't need to swim every single day. You don't need to train. What's much more important is to swim a long way when you do get in.
Yeah.
And COVID has just been awful for me training wise this year because the two pools I belong to, one limited you to an hour during the summer, and it's changing up a little bit now. And the other one limited you to half an hour.
Wow.
And so really it's like, my warm-up's not even over in the first hour most of the times, because most of my, what I do is, like I said, I'll only get in 2 or 3 times a week, typically, right, before COVID. But the workouts were all 10K or longer, right? So this time right now is really hard, but because of that, it allows more free time. Because I can schedule that time. I'm not driving to and from the pool as much. I'm not changing as much. It's not a daily thing. And so those days when I'm not training, I get the full day of doing other stuff. So that's the biggest thing, that I think probably makes me a little bit different than others, is I don't even try to swim every day. Again, everything I'm saying is pre-COVID. Now that it's only an hour a day, I am trying to swim almost every day. Right?
Gotta get in what you can.
Right, to get in what I can, but I know that that's not really helping me for marathon swims.
That's true.
I know
that's
that.
True.
But that's a big thing. And then, having a family support is really important. Like when you go away to South America and it's for 10 to 14 days, you've got to have, a family that's willing to tolerate that kind of travel, because the family doesn't travel with me. I go alone. Yeah.
Right.
So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So it's important to have a strong family behind you supporting you. That's very true.
Yeah, it's I always say that it's really important to have the right people on the boat with you when you are doing a marathon swim. I've had a swim go really wrong with the wrong crew on the boat.
Really?
Crew not prepared.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's a great symbolism, metaphor for life.
Right.
And really, you have to have the right people in your life as well in order to do a marathon swim.
Definitely agree with that. Yeah. So what do you do professionally outside of swimming? I did a little research, read a little bit about your coaching
Yes. So there's not so I hate to do this to you, but I don't really have a short answer. I spent my professional career in healthcare IT, and I was a senior guy at a global 50 company, all that kind of stuff. Then I was the CEO of a smaller company that went through troubled times and had to pivot a couple times before it's found its way. And then it sold to a different global 100 company than the one I had worked for previously. But during that time, I tried to get back to marathon swimming during the time I was running a smaller company, because, I think it's really important to get back to the sport. As you know, you couldn't do these swims without people helping you, the right people on your boat with you. You're not paying them to be your friends, right? They are your friends. They're there to support you. And sometimes you barely know them, but they're still there to support you, which is a wonderful thing. So it's really important to get back. But I can spend 13 hours in the ocean, in a big blobby ocean moving all over the place, and I'm fine. I spend 13 minutes on a boat in the ocean and I am green. I'm blowing chunks. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can put that in many crude ways, but it just doesn't work. And so I had to find a different way to get back to the sport. It was a little less direct. And what I was doing is I was talking to local swim teams, just kind of like life lessons from marathon swimming, right? Things around tenacity, goal setting, you know, all that kind of stuff that we all take as second nature in our sport. But it's really applicable to anything, right? And they're really important life lessons for, I think, for people to apply to any big thing that they want to do. And then a buddy of mine who is the CFO for the US arm of a big global company asked me to do their US kickoff, their annual US kickoff, and be their keynote speaker.
Nice.
And I said, no chance.
You said no.
I said no. And I said no for months because it was like, it's one thing to, you know, to go talk to a bunch of teenagers about, you know, swimming, which they can kind of relate to. It's a whole other thing to put yourself out there as a keynote speaker to a room full of 300 business professionals, right? Yeah. Those are big, very different audience, right? So I said no for months. And then finally, he convinced me to go to lunch with 2 other executives from the company. And I went to lunch and I literally took the printout, just a PowerPoint printout of the PowerPoint of the last presentation I'd done to a swim team. Okay. I took that with me to lunch and I figured, okay, I'm just going to go through this. They're going to puke all over it and I'll get my friend off my back and I'll be done. I'll get a free hamburger, you know, I'll get a free hamburger out of it and I'll be done. And so I went through the thing and I just, you know, talked through it. Then at the end of lunch, I was, you know, I sang goodbye, nice to meet you. And they were like, no, wait, how much do we have to pay you to come do that talk? Like, wow,
that's awesome.
And I actually said nothing because it's going to effing bomb. I said nothing because it's going to bomb. So when the company bought the company that I'd been the CEO of, I had an 18-month transition period with him. It was my very last week with this company. And I flew to Chicago to do my friend's company's US kickoff, right? Okay. A European-based company. And so I really thought it was supposed to be 45 minutes, 15-minute Q&A. And I expected crickets, right? The 15-minute Q&A turned into half an hour because there were so many questions. Finally, the moderator cut it off and said, that's it, we're out of time. It's break, you know, get out of here. I mean, she was nicer than that, but it was over.
Wow, that's awesome.
But so I'm like, I get out to the, and so I actually, as I'm trying to leave, because it was break, people are still asking me questions, whatever. I get out to the car and I'm like, well, it didn't bomb. I don't know if anybody got anything out of it, but it didn't bomb. If there are that many questions, at least I didn't embarrass my friend. You know what I mean? That's what I was worried about.
People are falling asleep, obviously. They're very
falling asleep. Well, I just, I didn't want to ruin my friend's career. It's like, so it turned out that the global CEO had come over from Europe for the US kickoff and he was in the audience. So before I was even halfway back to O'Hare, the phone rings. It's like, hey, I really enjoyed your presentation today. That was great. I was like, okay, thanks. And he said, listen, I'm having my global kickoff in 2 weeks in Munich. Will you come over to Munich in 2 weeks and give that same presentation? And because it was my last week with the company that acquired us, and I was really looking at, I had no plans, right? I was trying to decide whether I was going to go start another business, go build a business, go work for somebody else, right? Whatever. And I was free. I had nothing to do. So I took a vacation to Europe and I had to work for an hour and do a presentation. But
very cool.
So it was cool. That went really well. I was, it was a lot of fun to go to Munich, and I'd never been to Munich.
So I hear the beer is really good in Munich,
I know
right?
But I actually, one of the highlights though was I actually swam in the pool where Mark Spitz got his 7 gold medals. Wow. And that was a really cool thing. The fact that the pool is even still there was awesome. The fact that I could swim in it was incredible.
Wow.
And now the lane where he got his gold medals, there was somebody in it was swimming when I was there, so I didn't get to swim in it. Okay. But before I got out, I snuck under the lane lines and actually got in that lane just so I could say I was in that lane.
You were in the lane.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so I did that. So when I came back, again, I was still trying to decide what I was going to do. But then my business network found out that I did keynotes. And so I started doing keynotes, and the word started getting out, and I started doing a few more of them. And, the way I do the keynotes is I would go in and I talk to people about what's going on in their business first. So every presentation I do is different.
Yeah.
Right. It's the same story, but it's different things to emphasize. And so I'd sit down and talk to people like, what's your competition doing? What's your 3-year plan? What do you really want the audience to hear? All this kind of stuff. And so what happened is people started saying, you know what, I really like talking to you. What is it going to take to keep talking to you? And I'm like, I don't know, pay me something. I don't know, throw some equity at me. I don't know. And so it's like 4 or 5 months of this. And I'm still I'm still thinking I'm a healthcare information technology guy. I'm still thinking that way. And I wake up one day and I'm like, wait a second, I'm a dope. I've got 5 clients right now in this other business. I don't know what it is, but I'm helping people. It feels good to help people. I guess I'm a business coach.
So the business found you. It sounds
right. It just happened incredibly organically. So it's such a long story because I don't have the ego to say, I'm a business coach. Like I'm some kind, but for whatever reason, right? Because I think it's because I have such a varied background. I mean, I was an engineer, as a programmer, right? When I started my career, I did sales, I had general management. So I can relate to a lot of people that way. I ran a small company. I ran a big division in a big company. So I just have a lot of experiences. I can relate to a lot of people. And so, I'm blessed that this happened so organically, but it's still,
awesome.
It's still something I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Like, wait a second, I do what? But I love it. It's the happiest I've ever been in my career because I'm getting paid for helping people.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And, a long time ago, I used to coach swimming. So believe it or not, right, even some of those skills and knowledge and that kind of stuff of how to communicate, how to talk to people, right, from coaching decades and decades ago, it comes into play now even.
Yeah.
So it's just been, it's been a crazy, wonderful experience. So I don't do keynotes anymore, obviously because of COVID. Right. But that had really become kind of I won't call it a sideline, but it's not really part of the core business. You know what I mean? I still do them, but it's not part of the core business. Core business is really coaching.
Yeah. So you can do a lot of the coaching now with Zoom, like we're doing this interview.
Absolutely right. And I tell you, when this COVID stuff started, I even myself, even an IT guy, I wasn't very literate on Zoom or Skype or any of the kind of stuff. Yeah. And now it's all like second nature. I don't know, as bad as COVID is and as hard as COVID has been on so many people, I mean, I can't imagine what it would have done to the economy if technology weren't as advanced as it is.
Right.
I mean, if people couldn't work from home, right? Oh my gosh, what would be happening?
Yeah, so many people would be out of work. I mean, it's been devastating for a lot of the service industry, like
I know.
airline hostesses. There's waiters and
no, it's all horrible. No, it's absolutely horrible. Yeah. And I'm speaking in very global terms. I feel horrible for a ton of individuals. I mean, unemployment being as high. Yeah. But I'm just talking from a global, from a national economic perspective. Imagine how much worse the economy would be if we couldn't have conversations like what we're having right now, and people couldn't work like they're working right now. There would be no money being produced. There'd be nothing being produced.
Yeah, and with technology like Uber Eats, there's still jobs in the food making business. There are still people who are delivering food, who are preparing the food. So there are a lot of ways that technology has really made a big difference during.
Yeah, it's really saved us during this time. By us, again, I know that sounds extremely selfish because I know a lot of people are suffering.
Yeah.
But from a country's economy perspective, it has really saved us. That it happened now and not 15 years ago.
Definitely, yeah. So let's switch back to swimming.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So before when we were preparing for this call, we were talking about some crazy wildlife that you ran into. You thought it was a killer whale, but it turned out to be something else. So,
I didn't. So I was part of a relay that swam from Catalina Island to Santa Barbara Island, and then went around Santa Barbara Island, and then headed back to Catalina Island. And for logistical crazy reasons, we didn't finish the last third leg, but we did the first two legs. So it was still 2/3 successful from a completions perspective. But on the third leg going back to Catalina, I didn't even really realize it was going on. Most of this was on video that I saw later, but there was a pod of what everybody in the boat thought were killer whales. And they were even breaching and jumping around and doing all this stuff. And again, I'm in the water swimming along and I can't see them.
Right.
And, but then, so they're starting to come, and you hear everybody say, or a couple of people on the boat, don't tell Anthony, don't tell Anthony. And sure enough, these things that just look like killer whales flipped up upside down underneath me and swam underneath me as I'm swimming along. And I'm just like, whoa. But, I always tell everybody, people ask about sharks all the time. And I always say, right, you're never going to see a shark before you feel him if he wants you. If he wants you, you're going to feel him before you see him. So if you see a shark, it's usually not a problem.
Exactly.
And that's exactly how I felt about those things, because they just went zooming past me. And it ended up, they weren't killer whales. They weren't orcas. I shouldn't use killer whales. They weren't orcas. They were actually rhesus dolphins, which are big old giant, multicolored, more gray than black, but multiple colored dolphins that are just huge. I'd never even heard of. When the swim was over, I had to go look it up to see what they were. But they're size of orcas, right? And they look like orcas, have dorsal fins like orcas, and all that kind of stuff. And but that ended up being what they were.
You do have video of them?
I do. Yeah.
Can you provide it after this? I'll post it like embedded in YouTube or something like that. And post it if I can get the.
Yeah, I'm just writing it down so I don't forget.
Yeah, if not, what I'll do is I'll at least post some pictures of these incredible animals, so that people guys have a visual to look at. That's really, really cool. So yeah, I'm fascinated by wildlife, and that's one of my favorite parts about swimming is seeing wildlife. I've seen sharks when I'm paddleboard, but I don't see them very often when I'm swimming unless I'm like snorkeling or scuba diving.
Yeah.
But I did when I was swimming around Lido Key. Supposedly a big shark went right underneath me. My pilot, the kayaker, saw it and told me afterwards, but I didn't. I was completely clueless. It was like a 7-foot shark going right underneath me.
Yeah, so supposedly when I did Cook, there was a tiger shark out there as well for Cook, but I never saw it either, right? They ushered it away for me without me realizing what they were doing. But one of the coolest things, so if you like wildlife, right, I'm more of I consider myself an abalone diver, right? And, I'm an abalone diver who swims, if that makes any sense. I don't really consider myself a swimmer. I don't think I'm good enough to consider myself a swimmer.
It's a triple crown of multiple syllables.
Still, I mean, those, right? But one of the coolest things I ever had, so back in the 80s, before Lanai and Hawaii was developed, before it had hotels and all that, it was just really a bunch of houses, some houses, not even a bunch, some houses and pineapple, fields and all. Yeah. I paddled with guys that lived on Maui. We paddled over in an outrigger, camped out over there for 3 days. It was so awesome, right?
Where did you camp?
We paddled in the outrigger from Maui over to Lanai.
To Lanai.
And Lanai is an island. Yeah. This is, there's hotels on it and stuff now, but back then there was no hotels. There was very little on it. And we just camped out there. It was like almost native, right? We took spear poles and, shot fish, and we took jugs of water, and that's all we took with us, right? Wow. And we, so on the way back, right, paddling back, all of a sudden the humpback whale breaches next to us like 100 yards away, and it's like, and it comes all the way out and splashes, right? Whoa. And then another one comes up behind us and does the same thing, and another one on the other side, and so we had humpback whales breaching around us for miles as we're paddling back. It was an amazing experience. And I kept thinking, like, any minute, it's just going to, one of them are just going to come right here. So that was pretty amazing.
There's a video on YouTube circulating, not on YouTube, on Facebook at least I saw it, and there was some kayakers and a whale came up to to eat some fish or whatever, and basically the mouth went right into the kayak, and it looked like it was swallowing the kayak, but
Oh, is that right?
the two kayakers were able to swim back to shore.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I wasn't worried so much about getting swallowed as much as I was just worried about getting landed on.
Right.
I mean, they're like,
crush you.
Oh yeah, it would be over.
So do you think
probably the most interesting?
Do you think the whales are conscious of you and keeping distance?
I do think so. I mean, yes. I mean, I think they're really very aware, very intelligent animals. They know. I mean, we were a small little kayak. There were three of us in a 4-man outrigger. So that's small, but still, I mean, the whale knew we were there. I mean, the whales knew we were there. They had to. But probably the story that you'll like the most, if you don't like me, it's a swimming animal story, is when I was doing the English Channel, and it was pretty rough in the English Channel, and then about in the middle, it kind of flattened out. And I had always pictured the English Channel as being murky like San Francisco Bay, and it's really not. It's much more clear than I imagined.
Yeah, it was really clear when I said.
But what happened when the water flattened out, right? The jelly started coming up.
Oh yeah.
And so I could see them enough that I could actually, kind of zigzag around them and dodge them and avoid them. And then, I messed up and one caught me on the shoulder, and I was kind of distracted by that. And it was not a big one, but I was distracted by it. And because I got distracted by it, a big one came by and it just raked me. I mean, I just swam right into it. It got me across the forehead, across the mouth and the lips, all across my chest and everywhere. And everything went black. I mean, really, it was just like, I didn't pass out, but everything just went black. I was in such excruciating pain, and I started spinning in the water, like out of control, just like it wasn't my body anymore. I knew my body was spinning, but the pain was so bad that I was just spinning in the water. Oh. And that was awful. And I don't even know how long that really lasted. And so, but you know how it is, right? Something like that happens, and then later on you think, that really couldn't have, that was too weird. That couldn't have happened that way. That's just my memory playing games with me or whatever. But then I got the observer's report, and it said right in there, and Anthony was doing somersaults in the water.
So was this a swim that you completed?
Yeah, that was English Channel. Yeah, so so actually in some ways it increased my mental fortitude, because again, I don't know how long it took me, but the pain did not stop for a long time. Right. But I bared down enough. Once I could focus and see and stop spinning in the water, I started swimming, even though I still had pain. Yep. But I just said, you know what? I am not stopping unless I'm dead. I'm not going through that and not finishing this swim.
Right.
And so in some ways it really, I won't say double my effort, but in some ways it just made me even more determined to finish that swim.
Wow.
It was just absolutely so painful. I mean, it was just.
That's insane. Yeah, I know. I haven't yet encountered a jellyfish. I've had little stings. I think I had one on my neck.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit painful, but nothing like what I've heard and seen. And so I was going to swim Alligator Lighthouse, which have been notorious for jellyfish stings. And I was going to do that right before swimming the English Channel relay. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. And so, but I didn't get stung on the English Channel. One of my teammates did, though. He got tagged, but.
Yeah, so it's hard. There's so many different. I think it's there's 2,000 different kinds of jellyfish, and obviously some are a lot worse than what I experienced.
Yeah.
But then some of them are nothing. I mean.
Yeah.
I swim down in North Carolina pretty often, and the jellyfish were pretty tough this year.
Are they?
Yeah, they were this year. This is the worst year for jellyfish in my experience down there.
Wow.
I've been going down there for a while. but still not like not like the story I told you. I mean,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
just more like, oh, I'm getting stung. Oh, I'm getting stung. Oh, I'm getting stung. I'm not going to swim 2 hours today. I'm going to swim an hour and a half. I'm going to get out. So,
So
stuff like that.
that's pretty scary though. If you're like blacking out and you can't see and you're
Well, I don't think I passed out, Talbott. Again, everything went. I know everything went black where I couldn't see, but I don't think I actually ever went unconscious. I was out of control, but
yeah,
not unconscious.
yeah,
So,
yeah. But not being able to see, that's what I meant by blacking out. Yeah, obviously you weren't unconscious, but that's very intense. So on that theme, what's the scariest, absolutely like thing that happened to you while swimming?
well, um,
Is is that
so
it?
I don't, that's a tough question because I don't know that I've ever really been, because yeah, I don't know if you know what abalone diving is, but I live in Pennsylvania. I've been out here for a long time, but I grew up in California. And
Yep.
so I spent so much of my youth and young adulthood abalone diving.
I think you grew up in the Bay Area, right?
Right, all right, in San Francisco Bay Area, a little town called Pacifica, which is just south of
I
San
know
Francisco.
exactly where Pacifica is.
Yeah.
I grew up in right over the mountains in Woodside.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah,
And,
yeah. So
and
yeah, so you,
I would read in the newspaper every 2 years an abalone diver up in Stinson Beach getting eaten by a great white shark.
I don't know if they got eaten every other year, right?
It seems
But
that way.
I will say that we had a morbid. Again, remember I was younger. Don't get mad at me now, all right? But we did have a little joke that every year there had to be a sacrifice to the abalone god.
Yes.
And so if you didn't die by, shark attack, which again doesn't happen, that it happens, but not that often, that people would get sucked out or they get tangled in kelp or they just end up in a situation that they couldn't deal with.
Wow.
Um, and and so again, I was young and, not very nice, I guess, but we didn't think of it as not being nice, but we call it, it would be an annual sacrifice to the abalone gods.
Wow.
And so just about every year, yeah, there is a death. Now they
Some sort
stopped a couple of years ago allowing abalone diving because there's something that's killing them off, and it's a horrible thing. It's not just being overhunted, but there's something that went through the starfish. It looks like it's gone through the abalone now.
huh.
But I still, even living out here, I'd go out at least once a year and go abalone diving. But so the scariest time for me abalone diving. Personally, I was down at Moss Beach and I got caught on the inside of some waves. They were about 10-foot waves.
Okay.
And they were breaking right on a cliff.
Yeah.
And it took everything I had to get out of that. I mean, it was just, I came out, when I got back outside the breakers, I was just absolutely shot and exhausted. So that was a personal one. Then up in Sonoma County, up north, a place called, some people call it Death Cove, some people call it Thunder Cove. There was a day there where I went in. It was a very rough day. There was, I don't know how to say this but it was a day where there were 3 people out that probably shouldn't have been out. So I had to pull 3 people out one at a time. And so take one guy in, go find the other guy, give it, and find the other guy.
And what were they doing? Abalone diving as well?
Yeah, right. Yeah, all 4. Yeah, we're abalone diving, and but that was nerve wracking because there was after I brought the first person in, it took a while to find the next person, and then when I'm bringing the next person in, all I can think about is I'm letting the third person go. I mean, basically die, right? So I'm making a life or death decision for other people. And then I took me a while, but I found the third person, and he was amazingly still conscious. But then as soon as I got to him, he was just out, right? It's like, oh, the rescuer's here, I'm out. So I pulled him on the shore, like dragging him ashore as well. So,
Wow.
and I'm not describing this very well. Everybody's like, 400 yards offshore, right? And it's like it's just a mess. But anyway, so that was the most nerve wracking. That was probably the scariest because I thought.
What was preventing them from swimming back? Was it waves? Was it?
There was an incredibly strong rip. And then where the waves were breaking on both sides of the cove, there were 6-foot waves breaking into cliffs, and then 10-foot waves on the other side breaking into cliffs. And then where it was calm, where it appeared to be calm, was an incredibly strong rip shooting straight out to sea. So just figuring out how to navigate all that and not get smashed into the cliffs, and how to, be somewhere where you're not being, flipped over and flipped around and all that. Just again, I had a lot of experience. I have a lot of experience being in the ocean,
Yeah.
right? And so if you don't have that experience, again, this sounds egotistical. I don't mean for it to, but it's almost intuitive for me to know how to navigate and where to be on a wave and where to be in the rip and how to use the rip and how to use the shoulder of the wave and just to do all that kind of stuff. I'm not a surfer at all. I don't have good balance, but I'm really comfortable in the ocean in almost any circumstance.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so that was by far the scariest, because I thought I was making life or death decisions for other people. And
Wow.
that's bad. So
That's
anyway, so yes, I haven't had anything like that at all. I mean, I've had failed swims in marathon swimming, right? But nothing that, nothing where I thought somebody was going to die. Nothing where I really thought I was going to die. The closest I actually came to dying, I think, was in Key West, because I was not prepared for 90-degree water, 90% humidity, and 90-degree air.
Right.
And that was my first marathon swim, and it was my very first marathon swim. And I wasn't hydrated. I wasn't feeding the right. I mean, and so I got to shore, and I thought I was sitting on shore for like 10 minutes. And I was told later I was sitting on shore for an hour and a half.
Wow.
So I was a zombie. I was just absolutely out of it. But even then, I was too out of it to be scared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The scary part happened later, when I realized,
Exactly.
that pain that I had, that was my intestines shutting down. I didn't realize that. Oh. But that was later, right? It wasn't during the swim itself. So
yeah, I think I don't know if anyone's died trying to swim around Key West from overheating, but I remember
it's actually shocking to me.
I remember reading about a marathon swimmer or maybe triathlete or whatever dying in the Middle East because the water was too hot.
So that was actually the same year, and that was actually Frank Crippen.
Yeah.
He was, at the time, he was one of the best swimmers in the world, open water swimmers in the world.
Wow.
And it was Abu Dhabi, and it was 2010. And quite frankly, it was 4 months after my Key West swim. And so, quite frankly, it was his death that helped me figure out what happened to me. I was on fumes at the end of that swim. And that was only my swim around Key West was only 12 and a half miles.
Yeah.
And, the last mile, it was heads up breaststroke, right? I was just concentrating not to pass out.
Right.
And so my goal was to swim the English Channel, and I was distraught for, a long time, because it's like, if I can't swim 12 and a half miles, how am I ever going to swim 20 miles of the English Channel?
Right.
And then when Frank Crippen died, which is a horrible, horrible thing, that's when I actually did research. That's when I realized that, that feeling that I had was my intestines shutting down. That feeling I had because I was, that's when I figured all that stuff out, because until then I wasn't aware. I mean, I was just clueless, right? And so unfortunately, it took something as sad and disastrous as that to educate me. But I stand a little bit on as a midget on the shoulder of a giant in Frank Crippen. But yeah, he was certainly, I think it's pretty much unarguable, he was the best male U.S. Swimmer, and one of the best swimmers in the world, open water swimmers in the world, when he died.
Wow, that's insane. And it was from he
got too hot. It was overheated. The water wasn't even it was, as I recall, it was in the high 80s. The air was in the high 80s. It wasn't 90 like I was, but still, for somebody like him, so when I started feeling really bad, right, I slowed down and started doing heads up breaststroke.
Yeah.
Somebody of his character and of his competitive spirit, he's part of a competitive pro race. He felt like that, and I'm sure he just kept going.
Right.
And so yeah, it's just a horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
Thing. So.
Yeah, and I mean, this sport has dangers not only from wildlife like mammals and fish and jellyfish and all sorts of different interesting creatures you could run into, but also it has dangers from just the conditions, either the cold or the hot or just your body shutting down, because we're taking our bodies to extremes for such a long distance or a long period of time.
Right. And that's where it's really important, as we started the conversation, right, to have the right people on your boat,
Yes.
both in life and in the boat, right?
Right.
Because if you have people on the boat that don't know what a marathon swimmer is going to go through, like my face gets all swollen up. I mean, in a couple hours, everything gets, I get even uglier than I am. And it just is, but if you don't know that's coming, you might think that's disaster. I need to end the swim.
Right.
But so you have to have people on the boat that know that you're going to be suffering and you're going to be in pain, but know where the line is for you between discomfort and danger.
Yep.
Right. And that line between discomfort and danger, the swimmer loses track of that for whatever reasons, right? Because they are going numb, or they're going, they're focused on other things. But that crew really needs to know that line too, because it's horrible to have a swim end. I mean, the emotions of having a swim end, right, is just, I've had it happen. It's just absolutely horrible emotions. Right. But having somebody die is worse. Exactly. Right. And so having the crew that know that difference between danger and discomfort and knowing where that line is just absolutely critical.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very good advice. Very, very good advice. So, I mean, this has been a really fantastic interview, and I've been really enjoyed asking all sorts of questions about your work and your swimming career. So let's shift gears a little bit. I want to ask you some more other questions. And this is actually one of the ideas when I was thinking about envisioning Talbott TV years ago, that I would have like a bunch of questions and just ramble off, and I've already sent you a couple of them. What's your favorite food or type of food?
You're gonna hate my answer, because I am Mr. Bland. I have a glass stomach.
All right.
And so really, I don't like anything spicy. Okay. I don't like vegetables. I'm really a bad example for my kids. So I'm Mr. Bland. If you give me a choice, I'm just gonna make myself scrambled eggs or omelet or something, and I'm as happy as can be. So sorry, I'm not more exotic than that.
No, that's great. That's a great answer. Actually, a good fried egg is one of my favorite foods as well. So I like that answer. How about your favorite music? So this could be either a style of music or your favorite musical artist or group.
This is going to be you're going to think this is a flaky answer, I think, but it really depends on the day and the mood. I mean, I'll listen to jazz. I'm a, big jazz saxophone, Eddie Harris kind of fan. I like, I'll listen to Parliament, George Clinton, and
there you go.
I love all that stuff.
I saw George Clinton in Parliament in Funkadelic in New Orleans.
Oh, that must have been wild.
Yeah, House of Blues. I was working for Microsoft at the time, and I was working down there, and we wanted to burn off some steams, so we went to the House of Blues and saw that. It was a great show. He just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
That's a good show.
And then I also like Santana, right? Like I have an old Jeep, and right in the old Jeep right now, it's I've got a Santana CD in it, right? It's
very cool.
But then I also like like ZZ Top or Pink Floyd. The last concert I think I went to was a George Thorogood concert.
Wow.
And so that kind of, but I appreciate almost all kinds of music. So I'm not a big opera guy, but just about anything else I'll listen to.
Nice. What about your favorite place in the world? It could be your office. It could be underwater with the Abalone. Where's your favorite place in the world?
I hate to tell you because it's already so popular. I hope a lot of people. But that almost came out wrong. But I love St. John in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
That's a beautiful place. I've stayed in St. Thomas and taken a boat over to St. John for the day. But
I know. There's a world of difference between staying in St. John, and I hope this comes out the right way. Staying in St. John versus traveling there for the day.
Yeah.
It's
I
really
imagine.
different. And so I mean, I just love spending time in St. John. The water's perfect. The water's gorgeous. I can spend all day swimming. I can spend all day snorkeling. All right. The scenery is beautiful. I
Yeah.
mean, I love St. John. So that's probably my favorite place. As
Wow.
far as, big cities, I love Paris. I love London. Um, so I have to go get my London and Paris fix every once in a while, but not right now. No, COVID's going on.
Nice. Excellent. So that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, St. John is probably one of my favorite places I've ever swam. It's like I love the wildlife there. It's just insane. Yeah. All the animals under the sea. You got like, gosh, I can't. I saw eels. I saw flying gannards there. I saw a little baby lemon shark in a lagoon there.
Yeah, you'll see a lot of nurse sharks there as well. Yeah. So tons of turtles. It's just
Oh, one of my favorite experiences was in the Christmas Cove right there in St. John. So the boat captain dropped me off. He's like, meet me at the harbor, and my family stayed in the boat. I was trying to get my son to jump in with me, and he's like, no. He was like 8 or 9 years old at the time. I jump in, and I have my goggles on. I don't think I had my camera with me. I paid twice as much money that I spent on the camera for the underwater casing. Right below me were 3 huge nurse sharks just swimming along in a formation, and I was like, oh, that would have been a great picture. And then I ran into this spotted eagle ray, and I started following him, and so he was going the same direction I was going. I followed him for like 20 minutes, and finally he seemed like he was going off this way, and I needed to go off that way. So I started going the other direction. He's like, hey, why did you stop following me? So he circles around me twice.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh, that was one of the best days I've ever met.
That's awesome. That's great.
St. John's a magical place.
So that ferry ride you took between St. John and St. Thomas, I've actually swam that.
Oh, I've never been on a ferry. We would take a private boat.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, gotcha. Right.
We go there like to the PVI or something else.
Right. Yeah, so I've swam between St. John and St. Thomas. I've done
nice. That sounds like a great swim.
It was an interesting swim, that's for sure. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I know you've got a busy day, and we're running up to like the 2 o'clock mark, and I want to thank you, Anthony, for an amazing interview, and I'm looking forward to putting this up online and promoting your new movie. You got to tell us when it comes out so we can promote that as well.
So it's not a full-blown movie.
That's
short. It's a short. It's a film. I don't know if movies, I don't know what, right? And it's not mine, right? So I'm in it, and it was a really unique, weird, fun experience, but it's not a full-blown movie.
It's like 25 minutes long, right? Or maybe
I think it's between. I haven't seen the final product yet, but I think it's between 35 and 40. Actually.
35 and 40, which is perfect. That's good. That's good amount of time.
The scenery, the cinematography on it is just incredible. They were really talented. They are really talented guys.
Awesome. Can't wait.
All right. All right, Talbott. No, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, and have a great one, Anthony. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.